Italian clubs are back at the top of European football after more than a decade. AC and Inter Milan will face off in the Champions League semi-finals, and Napoli are already having a stellar season. They are on the cusp of winning the league title. But can these clubs sustain this success and challenge the big boys of the English Premier League and La Liga? That's what we are going to discuss in this live. Hello and welcome to WION Sports Extra. I am Nikhil Mathur and I'm joined by my editor Digvijay Singh Deo and by my colleague Vidur Kathuria. How do you see this? Is this a flash in the pan, or will this season mark the revival of Italian football?
Well, it's taken a while. I think it's been building up to this. Obviously, I think it's also a cycle, because when I was in school, much younger, Italian football was what I grew up on. The Juventus team back then, and there was the AC Milan as well, and Juventus were always around. And at that point of time, the Italians were known for the defensive football and masterly coaches. Ancelotti, there was Arrigo Sacchi, Mauricio, Marcello Lippi, and many others. And then Capello. If you remember that time, the Italian clubs were constants in the Champions League, like what we have with Real Madrid today. It was the Italians back then, I think Juventus reached 3 consecutive finals. Yes, they did. Yes, under Lippi. And then obviously once that cycle started to change, I think 7 is the Liverpool AC Milan thing we remember. Then Milan won it in 7, and after that there was Inter Milan. I think after that there was a massive decline. That sort of also coincided, which is surprising, that at that point of time Italy were world champions 2006, but then the drop off happened. Perhaps it's also because all the top players then started getting attracted to the Premier League and La Liga. The financial might of the Italian league was not as much to retain these players. It started to become a very feeder league. There was a time when the best players in the world played in Italy. Yeah. And an Italian team at a World Cup would never have players from outside. Even the German teams, to be very honest, back then, I'm talking of early 2000s, they were all based out of Germany. And that was the criticism of the Premier League, that, you are having this situation where how many English players are actually playing? So gradually the English pie became bigger, it's become the most dominant league. And now what we are seeing in Italy is that after a while, we have these rich owners who have come in, Americans own Roma, the Chinese owner at Inter Milan, AC Milan is owned by Redbird. So the money is coming in because of overseas investors. And overseas investors, once they come in, they want success. And then you get the players. So it's not showing in the national team's performances, because Mancini, who's the current coach, he says that how many players are actually playing, top players? He said, my supply pool is limited. So it's a chicken and egg situation right now. While they're doing very well in club football, you're not seeing that sort of a bounce effect in international football, which is surprising, because they won the Euros, and that was a thrilling team.
Yeah, what's your take?
Well, I think, as Digvijay said, the talent pool is there now. That's the most important thing. If you look at the top teams in the Serie A right now, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and of course Napoli, they have...
Even Juventus.
Yeah, they have some of the hottest prospects in world football, and all of them are young. Let's start with Juventus. They have Federico Chiesa, who was injured and he's back now, but he's one of the best young midfielders out there. Inter Milan, they have had the same sort of squad for a long time now, but Lautaro Martinez, even though he hasn't had the best season, he's still, an ace attacker.
Barella.
Exactly, Barella. Then with AC Milan...
Then you had Çalhanoğlu, who went over to the other side.
Yes, you have in AC Milan, you have Rafael Leao, who's definitely... Premier League clubs are definitely going to go after him. And then, of course, you have Napoli, where you have Victor Osimhen, who again is going to be a real sort of target man for everyone in the Premier League. And of course, Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, hope I got that right, who again has, expressed his desire to play at Real Madrid. So now you have these such exciting young players, and that's the most important thing. So going forward, I think what is crucial for these clubs, if they can hold on to these players.
Yeah, because I want to come in there. When you say they are young players, earlier the Italian league had the best players. The Kakas of the world, the Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo. You look at Zidane, Seedorf, Didier Deschamps, they all played there. Now you are basically what's happening in Italy is becoming sort of a feeder league, like what happened with the Dutch league. Dutch league was also at a point one of the most prominent leagues in Europe. And now, if they become feeder leagues, then how is that league going to grow? I think now they have some semblance of rich owners who can buy the big players, but they still can't compete with La Liga and the Premier League.
Yeah, their spending was the lowest amongst the transfer windows. They were among the top 5 league. They were the lowest.
Most of these players I mentioned are not big money signings at all.
Yeah,
Most of them come through the academy or relatively cheap signings.
And see where they're coming from, the Balkan countries, where it's cheaper.
yeah.
So their scouting network is obviously much better.
And also credit to the manager, the way Spalletti or even Mario Sarri at Lazio is doing. They have a limited squad, limited players, but they are just doing really, really well.
But I think it's also a question of management. Sarri went from Juventus to Chelsea and then had that kind of a season where it was just one season.
One season.
And it was a bust up, Look at all the good managers. Conte is still one of your top managers. Mourinho was there. Again, got into trouble yesterday with the referee.
You mentioned Jose Mourinho. He's a star attraction of the league. Any league that Mourinho goes to, obviously it raises the profile of that league. So that's also very, very important.
You have the Inzaghi brothers who are both managing, Pippo and Simone.
So AS Roma also have some very good players, and they might be back in the Champions League next season.
Yeah, because
so again, a historically big club, AS Roma, who haven't been doing that well of late. But
for the longest time, that period between 2010 and 2022, 23, which I mentioned, the only Italian club to sort of have that hold in Europe were Juventus. They had the money and they could attract the big players. Obviously, it's fallen off the pace. A very similar decision to what happened with Tuchel, right? To get rid of Allegri, who had sort of won them a lot, and then there was Conte before that. But I think they're getting there. And I think that's good for European football because you don't want to see two clubs from Spain and two clubs from England in there always, or a Bayern Munich, or just a PSG. I think this year the Champions League has shown it's been very open.
And even the Europa, Juventus is there, Roma is there, and even in the Conference League, I think Fiorentina are there. So there are like 5-6 clubs who are challenging.
When I was growing up, Fiorentina was the biggest player was Gabriel Batistuta, Batigol.
He's iconic player.
But do you still think like Inter or AC needs to win the Champions League, to be labeled, in terms of the Italian football, to be the one of their best season? One of these teams needs to win a European trophy.
I think one of them will be in the final.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a progress. You had 3 of them in the quarters. They have sort of, I think it's step by step. There was a period when the English clubs were also not doing too well.
Yeah.
And then you had Liverpool getting there, and then you had Liverpool and Tottenham final, then the City-Chelsea final. I think it comes around in cycles. I think the first season we saw also last season with Milan were in Liverpool's group, right? And they had a great game. They were leading. They couldn't hold on to that. I think as you get that noose of playing at that level again, it will come back. Let's not forget the clubs we remember, the AC Milan, which I remember, were by far the most dominant team of the Champions League in that era between, say, 1997 to 2007, 2008.
Just purely because of the players they had, just legendary players. Marco Van Basten.
No, Van Basten was still previously. I'm saying this era, you had Kaká, Pirlo, you had...
and Pirlo, and
Shevchenko, Nesta.
Maradona,
Yeah.
So our poll question was:
We have
can
some
Inter
comments.
or AC Milan win the Champions League, go all the way? And well, most of you seem to think that no, it's not going to be. It's going to be. Ibrahim says it's going to be Manchester City's year. We've already discussed that. George Lucas also says. George Lucas, interesting name. Man City all the way.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars. So it's the stars in that war. And it's a Star War coming up, no?
Yeah.
City versus Real Madrid.
Then Emmanuel Osei, I hope I got that right, says that yes, Inter or AC Milan can win the Champions League.
But I think when we're talking of the renaissance of Italian football, we have to talk about Napoli. What a story. It's one of the few cities in Europe which has just one football team. The identity of that city is the football club. And the passion we are seeing, I'm just hoping to see the pictures when they actually win the Scudetto.
Yeah,
It's
probably,
been, the last time was what? Maradona? 1990?
yeah, 33 years ago.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a great occasion for the city, and just enriches Italian football in a different way, because that city and Napoli have been in and around the top for a while now.
And they also had a Roman Abramovich type of owner who used to hire and fire managers.
Yeah.
Gattuso was there also. Last 3-4 years, they've had so many managers.
Yeah,
So Spalletti has actually sort of managed to keep De Laurentiis quiet.
Yeah.
So De Laurentiis himself, the owner, is a very colorful character.
Yeah, and just a point about the football team, that the three main players that which sort of were the backbone of their team in the last 5 years, they lost all three of them players. Koulibaly, Insigne and Dries Mertens.
Dries Mertens, yeah.
So all three of the Dries Mertens, who's their record club.
I think only one stuck around was Zielinski.
Yeah.
Zielinski is still there.
So now, I mean, completely new team, great buys, and look at what they're doing.
Yeah, no one gave them a chance to, be at the top, but they may just clinch the title later today.
Yeah, and last season, again, Milan, when they won it, even the previous year, they were in the race till the very end,
Yeah.
And Inter won it then, but it was neck and neck.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing is Napoli sort of pulled ahead. Good that Juventus currently still have their points restored. Because if they're in the Champions League next season, I expect them to do some damage. Because they still have, that core of that team is still got a lot of Champions League pedigree in it. Bonucci is still there. Okay, Chiellini's moved on, but...
And they'll buy some new, if they get Champions League football, they'll definitely buy some new talent. Yeah.
So yeah, I think time will tell that is this the resurgence complete, or have you taken the poll? 40.
Yes, let's look at the poll. Can Inter AC Milan win the Champions League this season? 48% say yes.
Oh, that's close. Yeah.
Close. I mean, you have to say that Manchester City or Real Madrid, whoever goes through that.
But we spoke about this, that in a one-off match,
Exactly.
Yeah.
with the counter-attacking football that these play, they'll sit back and observe. I think even the AC Milan Napoli game was a masterly display in holding defensive football. And that's what they're good at.
Exactly.
It's in their DNA.
Exactly. Inter did that as well against Benfica, who had Gonzalo Ramos and some good strikers.
Just think about it. Growing up and you're reading about Italian football, what comes to your mind? The great defenders. Not that many forwards. Of late, then you had Del Piero, you had Totti, but Totti was not, I wouldn't say he was out-and-out striker. You had Pippo Inzaghi, Mancini himself. But, when I was growing up, Vialli and Baggio and Schilacci, but you still remembered more of the defenders. It was always known as this team which would defend very well. So that's why I think it's not a done deal that City or Real will win the Champions League. Anything could happen.
Yes.
So yeah, what do we have on our show? Another record by Erling Haaland.
Oh yes. Now he is the out.
Now in Indian terms, you'd call it Tilak.
Yeah.
51.
Now he's the outright top scorer in a single season in Premier League history.
But you need to also explain the thing that Shearer and Andy Cole, that time the season was much bigger.
42 game season. So he has surpassed their tally.
In
as
just
well.
31 games?
Yeah. So I mean,
That's what, a goal per game. More than a goal per game.
More than that. So he now is breaking records every day almost. So
Yeah.
it's not
As Guardiola said, he's on that Messi level now.
well, in terms of goal scoring, these are unprecedented. Only Messi and Ronaldo we've seen these.
And Lewandowski.
Yes, the odd season. Yes.
50. He had a 50 goal season.
Yes, that's right. And what
Okay,
else?
we have Wolf. Big story. Ian Poulter, Lee Westwood, Sergio Garcia have resigned from the European Tour. That means they will not be eligible to play the Ryder Cup, despite the fact that they're from Live Golf. The criteria for membership for being part of the European Ryder Cup team is that you have to be a member of the European Tour. And these three have been absolute standout players. Garcia is the leading point scorer in the Ryder Cup, 28.5 points. Westwood has more appearances, 11 Ryder Cup appearances, and most wins. He's been part of 7 Ryder Cup winning teams. Garcia, 6 Ryder Cup winning teams. Poulter, 5 Ryder Cup winning teams. So it's sort of the end of an era for European golf. We have the NBA.
Yes, of course. The Boston Celtics have bounced back against the Philadelphia 76ers in a blowout victory. the 76ers were never really in contention, despite the fact that the new league MVP
was back.
Joel Embiid was back, but he's not quite back to full fitness. He was restricted to 15 points. But yeah, that could be a long 7-game series. Let's hope so.
And do you remember Emma Raducanu, the British teenager who won everyone's heart by becoming a US Open champion as a qualifier? She's not been able to have any sort of sustained run after that, but she's hopefully this break, she's had to go on a break. She's going to miss Wimbledon and the French Open because of surgery. Hopefully the break allows her to refocus and just get back that winning mentality. I think that's what's been missing.
Yeah, so that and much more on our show at 6:30 p.m. IST. Thanks for tuning in.